Welcome to Live.Stock, brought to you by the University of Tennessee Beef and Forage Center. I'm Bruno Pedreira, Center Director and Extension Forage Specialist with the University of Tennessee. I'm here today with Dr. Katie Mason.
Yeah, excited to be here. We're here at the American Forage and Grassland Council meeting in Kissimmee, Florida. So we came from the snow down here to what Florida thinks is cold weather, but a little bit warmer than what we were having. So excited to be here.
Yeah, and very happy to be here today with Dr. Leanne Dillard, Forage Extension Specialist with Auburn University. Very happy to be here with you and have a chance to talk a little bit. Leanne, I want to start, first say thank you for making time to be here with us. We know that we all have a crazy busy schedule here this week, but I want to start you sharing a little bit about your personal and academic journey. What brought you to this position as a forage extension specialist?
Awesome. So it actually is kind of a convoluted way I got here. So I grew up just south of Chattanooga in Northwest Georgia in a little town called Calhoun on a chicken farm with some cows. And growing up, if you've ever been on a broiler farm, it's a lot of hard work. We didn't have any extra hired hands, which was my family. And I ended up not wanting to be a farmer, anything to do with ag, because it was so hard, right? Like farming is really hard. So when I graduated from high school, the first thing I want to do was get out of Calhoun. And so I moved to Birmingham, Alabama, so that I could major. I went to a school that didn't have any ag programs. It only had biology. I knew I loved biology and science, but I didn't want anything to do with ag. So I went there, lived in downtown Birmingham, and then very quickly realized I missed green things, right? So I was there for 4 years and I found myself, there was one little acre of grass and a park across from the biology building. And I was there every afternoon trying to soak in the sun and feel the grass. So I realized that ag was my calling. And so I went to Auburn, Cal College in Alabama, right? That's if you want to learn about cows, that's where you go. And I learned, because in my undergrad, worked with an ecology professor and did undergraduate research in ecology. And I really liked it, but I learned that there's an ecology in ag. So I was able to do research and learn more about the agroecosystem and how farming fits into the natural environment and how we can change that not only to increase production and profitability and feed the world, but also to benefit our natural environment and enhance it. So I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I had the opportunity to go to the University of Georgia and work for the then forage extension specialist, Dr. Dennis Hancock. And during the year that I was there, it was a very quick year, but I learned extension was kind of my calling. Extension allows you to work with farmers and really help the farmers, but really the farmers are helping you. I learned more from farmers, I think, than I will ever be able to teach them. And I also appreciated the puzzle that every farm is. Every farm is different. Every farm has its challenges and its benefits, and trying to help a farmer put all those jigsaw pieces together really interested me. So after that, I ended up being able to work for the USDA ARS in State College, Pennsylvania for a couple of years, doing research with organic dairy farms. I had a beef background. I learned dairies were too close to chickens and I didn't like that. So, and it snows in Pennsylvania, which, as for me, even though I'm from North Georgia, I lived in South Alabama for 6 years, so that was a no-go. So I was there for a couple of years before I had the opportunity to move back to Auburn. And for any of you who have ever been to Auburn, once you go to Auburn, you kind of always want to go back. It has some way of drawing you back. So I've had the pleasure of being the forage extension specialist in Alabama since 2017.
That's great. That's really great.
Awesome. A little war eagle to that. Don't hold that against me, but I was grateful to work with you while I was at Auburn working on my master's and PhD. So today our topic is thinking about nitrogen replacements. We're, focused on helping the producer be efficient and cost effective. And your focus has been, using different things that we can supplement instead of nitrogen into that system. And so tell me, what the heck is a PGPR?
So a PGPR, that it stands for plant growth promoting rhizobacteria. And that's a really big name for something that we talk about a lot here in the forage world, and that's rhizobacteria. So as I told y'all, I was kind of interested in agroecology and how cattle can enhance the system, because that's what a storyline that we don't really talk about a lot. It's always, well, cows are bad for the environment. Well, really, cows can make the environment better. And so once I got to Auburn, I had the opportunity to work with some colleagues that were working with these PGPRs. And the basic concept, and I kind of summarize it, it's a little, obviously a lot more complicated than this, but you're making a grass into legume. So you all know the entire world is covered in bacteria and microorganisms. Everything we have, even our bodies, are covered in it. The soil is no exception. The soil is teeming with life. There's a whole ecology of the soil itself. So while a lot of legumes associate with those bacteria in their roots that fix nitrogen, those bacteria also just live free in the soil. So what we're able to do is take those naturally occurring soil bacteria. We're able to kind of test them and see some of them produce plant hormones that promote plant growth. Some of them produce plant hormones that help plants defend their immune system and defend against diseases and pests. And so once we kind of determine what their functionality is, we're able to put those either by themselves or with a blend, apply them and concentrate them in the plant. And many times the plant will even take them up, and it can promote growth in the plant. But more importantly, it makes the plant more persistent against disease and other stresses like drought. So we're doing a lot of research on how we can use those naturally occurring bacteria and concentrate them and use them in our perennial forage systems. So that the big thing is reducing nitrogen, because nitrogen's expensive. It also, a lot of it washes off, ends up in our waterways and causes problems. So it's a win-win for our producers.
And it's great because when we're talking about those PGPRs, those bacteria, right, Leanne, we're not only talking about something that help us with nitrogen fixation, as you already mentioned a little bit. You may have fight hormones. You have this induced plant tolerant to abiotic and biotic stress. So it seems that we can use those bacteria to help us to make a healthier plant as well, right?
Definitely, definitely. Like I said, it all comes back to just enhancing that system. So for what a variety of reasons, whether you've gone through a drought and the soil moisture has gone down, those concentrations, the bacteria that may be there just may not be high enough for the plant to benefit from it. So we're just kind of re-enhancing it. You know, there's been a big movement on soil health, which is adding biodiversity to our system to promote the macro, the insects, but also the microorganisms in the soil. So really, we're just enhancing that community to better the plant and kind of just pushing it forward a little bit faster, where we could probably do it naturally, but it's just, this is kind of increasing the speed in which we can add to that diversity of those soil bacteria.
Yeah, so one thing that I wonder about, and I know this is still in research stage, right? So it's a little bit hard to apply it directly on the farm right away. But when we're thinking about producers using tools like this, even if it's in the future, how much different is the cost compared to nitrogen? And then also, how easy is it for them to apply?
So, and that's an excellent question. So I will say there's already a lot of these materials on the market already. I will say most of what's on the market today has not really been tested through third party. So as university researchers, and y'all know just as well as I do, we try our best to test products, be completely objective, and make sure when we work with companies that, you know, we're not being paid per se, we're really just trying to make sure that product is good for our producers. So unfortunately, a lot of the products on the market haven't been tested through an objective third party. So I would be very, and that the cost is extremely variable. So usually it's sold as either a granular or as some kind of liquid. And so it's, you know, usually a gallon. And also look at the label and how much. That's a good, usually to me, a good indication. So the cost is extremely variable. For the products that we're looking at, we're still, we recently got a grant actually that University of Tennessee is participating in, where we included some economists so we can try to figure out what the cost is, because there is a process going through the process of concentrating these bacteria. The application is pretty easy. So most of our research has focused on a water application. So the bacteria, I mean, as with many things, there's a water requirement. So we want to make sure that, especially if we're applying in the drought, that there's enough soil moisture. So what we've been playing around is we're using backpack sprayers and put them out with just water, Just like you would if you put any inoculum on your hay or silage, similar process, except for applying it out on the field. If you had a pivot system, you could put it in there through that system. So we're putting it out through backpack sprayers because we're in a relatively small area. But we've also done some research on tank mixing it with herbicides, because a lot of y'all are putting out herbicides, and we wanted to see, does the bacteria, will the herbicide chemicals kill the bacteria, or does the bacteria potentially digest the chemicals in the herbicide and make them less work less? So our research has shown that, at least in focus on Bermuda grass, but the common herbicides in Bermuda grass, they don't, at least the bacteria I work with, they don't decrease the amount of bacteria we have. They're still live and viable at the same levels. We've also not reduced the efficacy of the herbicide. So we're looking at a goal of being able to tank mix those. And so when you apply your herbicide, when you apply your herbicide, you can just put the bacteria out, reduces trips across the field, and you're already hopefully doing that anyways.
Yeah, it would be 2 operations in only one, right? You don't need to add another tractor, labor, diesel, everything to that field. But we also have some of them that you can use as a seed inoculant, right?
Yes.
Which is another option that could reduce the cost as well. Some of what I've been reading and checking on, I think we could mention numbers here, like that we know that using those inoculants, we may be able to offer to the grasses something from 20 to 56 pounds of nitrogen equivalent, right? Am I right with this thought?
Yeah, definitely. I put it in the same category as, it's not going to be as much as including a legume. Legume is a constantly growing system. Because of the symbiotic relationship with the plant, those bacteria are constantly growing. In our system, the relationship's not quite as strong. So the bacteria will proliferate, but it's going to be slower. And sometimes the concentrations of those bacteria do wane over time. So we see the bacteria last about 6 weeks. We're able to mark them through that system. So I think 20 to 50 pounds is about equivalent. In most scenarios, most of our research is on Bermuda grass hayfields. So, and we've done some more research in tall fescue hayfields, and we're applying it about, every time we would harvest for hay and we would refertilize, we're reapplying. So you do also have to have multiple applications.
Yeah, so I'm thinking a little bit on the animal nutrition side and the microbiome side. So I know you're focused on the agronomic parts of this so far, and we know that we're making forage to feed livestock, right? So are there any considerations when you're feeding forages treated with some kind of inoculant to cattle or any other grazing livestock?
That is a great question. And that's one thing that we're hoping to answer for sure in the future. Honestly, in my brain, it's kind of, could we, positively enhance the rumen microbiome? We know there's a lot of bacteria in that rumen, and most of those bacteria actually come from the soil. The rumen gets inoculated from soil bacteria. So there potentially a lot of overlap. We've not done research yet to actually see how that works. But just in general, what I tell people is we're not adding any bacteria that's not already there.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So those animals would potentially be consuming it anyways. Also, none of the bacteria we're working with are, when you think about like something like E. coli, which would cause some kind of disease either in the animal or in the human that might be eating it. None of these are bad bacteria. So even if they were to survive the system, which I highly doubt, the immune system of a cow is amazing, or other grazing animals is amazing, and I don't think they would survive. But even if they did, there's no concern of having any kind of contamination that would be harmful to any part of that system. So
sure.
From what I learned out of this bacteria thing that we have been discussing, and I also think we have some of the trial in Tennessee, right, in partnership with you. We learned that those microorganisms may help us to reduce a lot of the nitrous oxide emissions, right? Because we are trying to replace urea with those kind of bacteria. Some of the results I know you already have from Auburn as well. You have much more root growth as well. So it may end up with a root system that will help us to explore the soil better, to reach out to other nutrients better. It will bring a little bit more of the drought tolerance.
Yeah. The only thing that I've really come up with that could be a problem is going to be maintaining the bacteria either as viable spores or live during the shipping process. And that's really where where our struggle is, we're applying live bacteria. There are companies with technology to make bacterial spores that would be, then you would wet them and then they would become viable living
Okay.
cells. So just like with legume inoculants, those bacteria have to be viable. So the only thing that I'm really struggling with is how do we make sure that product, that marketable product that has a shelf life. But in terms of actually when you apply it, making, we want to see the benefits is, in our research, sometimes the yield is kind of variable. Sometimes we see benefits, sometimes we don't. We see the best benefit when we actually don't just replace nitrogen, but reduce it. So really my goal is we're reducing the amount of nitrogen we're putting out, not necessarily replacing complete nitrogen, right? So we're still getting enough to get the plant going, but we're able to replace some of that. So and we're able to, as you said, we're increasing a lot of root growth. So even if the yield is variable on the above ground, every single time we're increasing that root growth. And we know droughts are more common. We're dealing with fall droughts every single year now. We're dealing even, with sometimes spring droughts, and it's getting hotter. We're having hotter, drier summers. And let's think to fescue. Fescue, as we move north, it's becoming more and more, it's more stressed during the summer. So from that perspective, I think if we can get through the shelf life, I really don't foresee any potential problems. That is something that we're looking into just to make sure that, like I said, we don't want to promote something that might be harmful to any part of the system, the producers, the animals, the ecosystem, but reducing nitrogen is definitely going to be beneficial, right? So.
Yeah. And so as we start to wrap up, this is a question that I thought of as you were talking about these being a solution and, different types of systems. And so is this something that can fit into like an organic system or, places where people don't want to use a synthetic fertilizer? Is this something that can fit into that better than, what we rely on now, or maybe not having fertilizer at all?
So I definitely think so, but I think it's a fit for all systems. So I definitely think organic is a benefit because there are challenges with organic fertilizers because there has to go through mineralization, and sometimes it takes a long time for those nutrients to be available. So you kind of have to have a program there since you're not able to use synthetic fertilizers. And you're also not able to use herbicides or chemical herbicides where this, and or insecticides. Let's focus on the insecticides because that's where we've done a lot of our work. Is we're actually seeing that the plants are more resistant to both below ground and above ground insects. So that can definitely help on that. But I see it more broadly applicable to even the average producer, even a traditional commercial producer that's using herbicides. That's why we did the tank mixing work with the herbicides, because as we move forward, I wish I could say that nitrogen prices are going to go back to 1999 prices. That's never going to happen. There are many things but nitrogen just keeps going up. And right now we're seeing a big boom in the cattle industry, but we all know that that's going to reverse at some point, and the margin of profit in the cattle industry is going to go back to very minimal. So anything that we can do to reduce one of our highest input costs, which would be nitrogen fertilizer, and promote our system. And also we haven't even talked about persistence and long-term management. Reestablishing a field is so expensive.
It is.
It's $5,000 to $8,000 depending on what you're doing to reestablish a field that may have been taken out by drought or overgrazing or some kind of insect damage. So the hope is that we're also maybe going to be seeing some long-term returns in terms of our stand productivity lasting longer. We haven't looked at that, so we're not sure, but if in the short term we're seeing that, it makes sense that in the long term, our forage stands are going to last a little bit longer.
Awesome. I think that was a great conversation here with you. Thanks again for taking some
No
time
problem.
to discuss with us. Did we miss something? Is there anything else that you want to add to this conversation?
No, the big thing I would be is if y'all are interested in this or you've seen any products on the shelf, I definitely encourage you to reach out to your extension agent.
Sure.
Dr. Pedrera has a lot of experience in this as well. Or reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to y'all because there are some products on the market that, if you're adding 1 gallon of product to an acre, it probably is not going to help you. There's a lot of intricacies to this. So we just always want to work with our producers to make sure that we're putting out the best possible thing and they're seeing the benefits. So if you're interested in this, please reach out to us for more information and we can help you pick the product that fits your farm and you're going to see the benefit.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. And thanks again for joining us on our Live.Stock podcast, sponsored by the University of Tennessee Beef and Forage Center. We hope to see you all here next month. Thank you.